Some of you may be familiar with this book. It's called For Young Women Only, What You Need to Know About How Guys Think. Shaunti Feldhahn and Lisa Rice surveyed hundreds of guys to find out all the secret things they're really thinking and feeling. Let's join Shaunti and Lisa now.
Hey girls! Welcome, and thank you for joining us today to talk about a subject that no girl anywhere is interested in, about boys. I'm Shaunti Feldhahn.
And I'm Lisa Rice.
And we are the co-authors of a book called For Young Women Only, What You Need to Know About How Guys Think. Before we start telling you a little bit about how guys think, however, let's talk a little bit first about the differences between guys and girls. We have spent the last 3 years researching this book and several others that deal with what teenage guys and girls are thinking. And as part of that process, we often did focus groups. We'd get 5 or 6 teenagers together in a room at one time, ask them a bunch of questions about their life and how they're thinking and feeling in certain subjects, getting them to talk about themselves. And it was really clear to us early on that what we were hearing from the guys and what we were hearing from the girls were very different in some key areas. Now, initially, we noticed that there were some girls that were a little skeptical about whether there really were any differences. In one group of girls, for example, we were asking them questions about what they were most insecure about and what they most needed to feel as girls. And they protested that we shouldn't word it that way. They said anyone would feel the way that they did. That the things that were most important to them, for example, would be important to guys as well. So we said, okay, fine, don't worry about what girls think, just tell us what you think. So we put together a chart that all those girls and dozens of others actually agreed with.
Let's put a few elements of that chart up on the screen for you to see, just as an example of some of the main things they said. The girls said that they most feared things like being rejected or being talked about behind their backs, and they said they were a bit insecure about how they looked. The girls also said that because of all that, they most needed to feel accepted and known and loved for who they were inside. Sounds familiar, doesn't it, girls? You know, these things fit so many of us. But after the girls created their chart, we said, hey, you know, we want to show you something. And we put up on the wall the chart that the guys had created the night before. And in a much broader survey, nearly all of the guys agreed that this captured their greatest fears and their greatest needs. I'm going to put that chart up for you now. Look how different it is. The guys said that they most feared failure or feeling inadequate. And they said it felt terrible if no one noticed them or affirmed them when they accomplished something. They craved the feeling that people did notice them and comment on their success. And they most needed to feel respected, powerful, looked up to, and competent. You know, that night the girls in the focus group were pretty surprised when they saw the difference between the girls' and the guys' lists. As one girl put it, when you look at these two lists, it's almost like they were written by two totally different species.
But we often just don't get some of those things about the opposite sex. And the differences actually aren't about the big, important things either. We had one joint focus group, for example, where we put the guys and the girls on opposite sides of the room. And see, we had been finding that the girls and guys that they process thoughts very differently. Girls tend to have a lot of things going on in our minds all at once, where guys often think about one thing at a time. So Lisa turned to one of the girls and said, Sarah, what's in your brain right now? And she said, oh gosh, well, I'm thinking about all the homework I have to do when I get home and that my dad is going to kill me if I get a bad grade on that test. And I'm really kind of worried that my friend Jessica is still upset about what I said this morning and whether or not she's been talking about that to some of her other friends. And now I'm wondering whether they're going to still want to go to the movie tomorrow night. And she listed like 5 other things. And the guys across the room were like, one of the guys said, wow, I was just wondering who was going to eat that last piece of pizza. You know, that's all that was in his head. There really are so many areas that we really are different in the little things and the really big ones. So that's what we're focusing on in this study. Now, we're not saying that we're only different, obviously, but there are some of these areas of difference that we just tend not to get about guys. And so those are what we're going to be talking about for the next 6 weeks together.
Let's tell you how we got here first, though. You know, several years ago, Shaunti wrote a book called For Women Only, What You Need to Know About the Inner Lives of Men. She has an analytical master's degree from Harvard.
And I'm still paying off student loans.
And she's worked on Wall Street before this. And she decided that instead of using her analytical skills to understand the inner workings of the stock market or what makes the large banks tick, that she would use it to understand what makes men tick. So her book helped women understand the things that they just tended not to get about men. And it became a big bestseller. I think it's, what, in 18 languages now?
Something like that. I just got my copy in Indonesian the other day. That was freaky.
Well, lots of women loved the book, but pretty soon we found that high school girls started asking for a teenage version so that they could start to understand the things about confusing guys early on.
So then I enlisted Lisa, who's not only a close friend, but also has an analytical background and has 4 teenagers living in her house. To figure out what makes teenage boys tick, we then talked to tons and tons of guys. We did focus groups, and then we started talking to guys in shopping malls and stopping them in coffee shops and arcades. We personally interviewed literally hundreds of guys about what they were really secretly thinking and feeling. And then we hired a professional survey company to do a big national, scientific, very expensive survey of guys ages 15 to 20 across the country. And when all that surveying was done, all those surprising things that we'd been hearing in all those interviews was borne out. We hadn't just interviewed the 100 weirdest guys on the planet.
So this isn't my opinion, and it's not Shanti's opinion. This is all about what real guys in the real world are really saying and thinking. We also chose about a dozen of the guys that we interviewed, and we asked them to look directly into the camera and share from their hearts the things you might never hear your guy friends say about their most personal feelings. These are things they wish girls knew, but aren't always able to explain in person. So during the next 6 weeks, we'll be sharing a lot of these things with you guys.
Well, actually, let's share a few of those things right now. Girls, we've been telling you that guys are different, and there really are some things that they want you to understand about them, but find it hard to say. So let's start off by hearing what a couple of the guys actually want to say to you.
A lot of girls think that they understand how guys work and the way that we think and everything, but a lot of times they don't actually realize a lot of that stuff, and I think it's really important that girls will try to understand us better. That way we can understand them better.
Sometimes I feel like girls just, it's hard to talk to them because there's a social stigma where guys aren't supposed to show emotion and really tell girls how you feel.
I don't think girls realize how much it shows us that they care when they take the time to try to understand us in a better way.
Girls, the guys we spoke with really have some profound things that they want to share with you. And as we said, we think many of those things are going to end up being surprising to you. They were surprising to us, too. So each week for the next 6 weeks, Lisa or I will be touching on a different truth that you really want to know. So girls, what we'll basically be going through is a crash course in guys and how they're wired. Are you ready for this? We know you're going to enjoy it. We will see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Girls, there's so much we think we know about guys that we really don't. This is going to be a fun study, but also a really important one. There are a lot of married women out there who wish they'd learned these things about men before they build up a lot of incorrect and hurtful ideas and habits. So here's our chance to learn these things and develop great habits now. We'll be discovering a specific truth about guys each week, going through Insider Magazine in our own personal time, and talking about what we're learning in small groups. So have fun with this, and I'll see you back here next week to talk about the first of the subjects that guys most want you to know.